Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Woodworking with Mr. Kevin. That's me, and today what we're going to do is we're going to continue on with our finishing journey. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to take apart these two guns right here. This is the DeVilbiss GTI, and this one is my BINKS M1G, and they're both HVLP cup guns. This one I use for lacquer, and this one I use for water-based polyurethane. So I'll take them all apart and I'll explain what everything is, and then show you what the insides look like, and we'll put them all back together. First, I'm going to switch you over to this camera here. Ready? All right, so I should be a little me in the corner and a big this guy. All right, so the first thing we're going to start with right here is this pressure gauge, which is loose. It's an adjusting valve. You adjust this to whatever you want it to be using this knob here. And the best place I like to keep it is like off to the side like this. So when I'm spraying, it's right there, and I can see it when I'm spraying. We have the cap on it right here, which is a good thing to keep clean. You want to make sure you don't make that hole any bigger than you need to, because it's not good to have a super big hole there. You can see the inside of this cup is disgusting because it's usually full of lacquer thinner. And this piece down here at the very end, there's, I think it's brass. And it turns green and gets all nasty, as you can see in there. So you don't want to over tighten these. You don't want to use the wrench on them to tighten them down, because it's a real pain in the butt to get them off later. I always, like I said in the last video, like to put a little bit of Teflon tape on there. So this is the filter that goes inside the cup. It keeps all the crap that's in your finish from getting into your gun and plugging it up even worse. And these always go in like that. A little ball thing is sticking out. See that? Okay, we get rid of that. I always try to keep my gun at least with a little bit of lacquer thinner in it if I'm spraying lacquer, just to keep everything wet. One reason is the packing that's in here. There's a weird kind of fibrous packing that's in there, and it's good to keep that wet. All right, we have the air adjuster and the fluid adjuster right here. Okay, this one is your fluid. This one up here is your air pattern. You can shut it all the way off, and we'll go over all this later. Shut it completely off clockwise, and then you open it up as you go along. And this one I haven't used in so long, it's getting very stiff. And this is your fluid. So all the way off is all the way clockwise like this, and then counterclockwise. I usually open this one up 2.5 turns and gets the fluid the way I like it, coming out of the top of the HVLP gun. And HVLP is for high volume, low pressure. So in here, there's a little blue washer, and it wears out the most. And I usually buy bags of them. There it is. You see that? So that's one. Here's what they normally look like. So I usually buy these by the bag load. I buy 2 or 3 at a time, because sometimes you can't find these. Make sure you have a good supply of them. And the second thing that wears out and gets clogged up, these little filters right here that go in your can, the fluid can. All right, and the next thing we're gonna do is the air cap. All right, so each one of these has an air cap number, which is on the top, and it has maximum inlet. Well, that's what you wanna set that's the maximum you wanna set your gun to. This one has, on the horn, it has 2 air holes on this side, 2 on that side, with 2 on either side of the little outlet where the needle is, okay? Well, some of these are different. My water-based one has 10. This one has a total of 6. Okay, so this is the fluid tip right here. There's a number on it. This one right here says it's a G4 or 9.4 with a tip size of 1.4, okay? You can buy all different types of tips from 0.9 to 1.8, I think. Depends on what you're spraying. When I'm spraying catalyzed lacquer, this is the tip I usually like to use the most. Okay, so the difference between this one, yeah, I haven't taken this apart in a while. You don't really want to tighten this damn thing up that much. You hear how it's squeaking? That's because this thing hasn't been apart in quite a while. Yeah, look at this. See that right there? Can you see that green? See this green right here? That's the needle. And that's because all the lacquer thinner dried up in there. Yeah, that's why I keep lacquer thinner in there, so it doesn't get all crappy like that. All right, I'm gonna show you how to, since I got this apart like this, I'm gonna show you how to take this apart right now. So we just loosen this up counterclockwise. We're just gonna spin it out of control here. We're all spinning out of control. And to get this nozzle out, the best way to do it is just to pull back on it like this and then pull this out. And you'll see that this needle is a little different than the next needle I'm gonna show you. Okay, it has all this adjusting crap back here, which I've never adjusted. I put a little bit of oil in here, and you can see this fluid needle is old and it needs a little bit of lacquer thinner. So what I'm gonna do real quick, I have a little bit of lacquer thinner right here. All right, Okay, there we go. It's cleaned up a little bit. Okay, see this right here? It's shiny. All right, that's from going through the packing right here and getting worn out by this guy too. It goes back and forth. And that's why you have to use spray gun lube. The second shiny spot, which is right here, is from where the trigger goes through, right here. That little retaining flange or whatever that is. Okay, and every now and then, you will have to replace the packing in here. It's good to keep this as clean as possible. And you can see inside of here, see in there? It's a little gross. Right there. So inside there, there's still a little bit of grossness in there. A toothpick. Toothpicks are very handy for doing finishing work, believe it or not. So if you're not going to use your guns for quite a while, I would suggest taking them all apart, cleaning them completely, and then storing them somewhere. The only problem is that packing that's inside of there might dry out. And that's why I usually leave this whole thing together and with a little bit of lacquer thinner in here. But you can see it also, a little bit of lacquer thinner in there also destroys your cup. So I have little cups laying around the shop just like this. I usually use this for water, but right now I'm going to use it for lacquer thinner. There it is. All right, lacquer thinner, the brush, and just get in there and clean that garbage out of there. And the other thing you can do is go through the top up here and put a little lacquer thinner down there, let it just clean it out. Because it's really, really gross in there. Let me get a paper towel. That's fairly clean. Okay, so let's put this thing back together before the camera shut off. Oh, I forgot to show you all this. Okay, so here's the next thing right here. Here's the baffle assembly with this guy right here. Here's another thing that wears out, but it doesn't wear off that much. And I have a whole bag of these, and I think I've only used 2 or 3 the whole time I've had them. You see that? Okay, see how it's beveled? Okay, you want to take the wide side and put the wide side down like that. You see how that is? So the wider is going towards the front, is narrower in the back. So when you go to screw this together, it actually seats in this little part right there. And I think what I'm going to do also, I'm going to clean this guy out. Hold on, because this is just nasty. To clean this baffle out too, you also can take lacquer thinner and just blow through there. You see how it just drains out? And that's a lot of times you'll have to get in here with a toothpick like this and clean that out. You see how that's sticking out? So if you leave finish in your gun, your gravity feed guns, overnight even, all the flatteners will get into this guy right here, and you'll wind up spending like 20 minutes trying to get all the goobers out of there. So don't do that. Even overnight, clean out your guns and put lacquer thinner in them if you're spraying catalyzed lacquer. Once this baffle gets full of crap, it's just the worst. And you can do this also. You can fill up a cup and just sit them in there overnight and just let them soak. That's another good thing to do. I use these all the time. They will actually hold lacquer thinner and it won't melt because this is food grade plastic and it doesn't melt using lacquer thinner. But you can fill this up with lacquer thinner and set your baffle in there. You could also set your tip in there, your air gap. You can set everything in there and just let it soak overnight and then clean that up in the morning. All right, so we're going to put this guy back together. First thing I'm going to do is put this baffle in, this baffle assembly in here. We got to make sure this guy is in place and it's pushed down into place before you go ahead and attach the baffle. And this screws in clockwise like everything else does. And when you go to put this together, it says 15 to 20 pounds, whatever. I just go like that and just give it a little snug. If you make it too tight, it's a pain in the ass to get off like you saw me the first time. And if you leave it in there very long, it is a pain in the ass to get out. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this needle in there. We take a little bit of lube, and don't go crazy with it, just a little bit, right where it goes in and out. You see it on there? There's not a whole bunch, just enough. And what we're going to do is we're going to stuff it down this hole. All right, and I kind of twist it as I go in there, twist, give it a little twist. Bottom that Johnson out, okay? This one's only got a spring here, a little tiny cheesy blue spring. Sometimes this does wear out, but not very often. All right, then we just take this cap and we screw this Johnson on there. All right, and we'll screw it all the way in. The next thing we could do is, geez, that one's nasty. We'll just put in our filter. What we have to do is put that little guy in there. So we're gonna break into our new pile here. The best way to put this in is actually just to push it in from the top. You have a toothpick, try to shove it all the way down to the bottom. Sometimes that won't be strong enough, and that's why I have this guy right here. Because that way I can just take it and shove it down in there. And the bottom's got a little bit of a cone shape to it. You see, so right there, it's a little bit of a taper to it. Okay, we got this in place. A little ball sticking down. We're going to put this guy into place here. And it's going to crank this until you, a little snuggeroo by hand. When you put the cap on, when it's up like this, push down and clockwise at the same time. That way you don't loosen up this can by mistake. So always try to push it down and to the right. Here's the back of the air cap. All right, there are all these holes here. Let the air through, and here's where all the air comes out. So when you're adjusting this adjusting knob here and letting it out, more air will come out. These guys here and these little guys here. There's where the fluid comes out right there. So this will actually sit like this. See how that all works? So the little holes inside of here are these very, very small holes. And the outside air holes are actually the ones that blow on the horn. They blow the horn. Honk. Yeah, so this all goes on there like that. The retaining pin goes on, the retaining ring goes on like that, boom. And you have put your gun together. Hopefully I can break this down into like 4 minutes.
Really?
So when we're spraying with the gun and the horns are like this, the fan goes like that. When you're spraying with the horns vertical, the fan goes like this. So when I'm spraying like this and this is this way, horizontal, I call that 0. When I spray this way and it's vertical, I call this 90. From now on, if you hear me say something when I'm working, that's what it is. End of story. All right. So when you're working with these air caps, if it's not spraying correctly, you might want to check those inside air holes first. And another way to clean those, you can't really get a toothpick in there because it's too big. Sometimes you can get a little straight needle in there from the back and the front. But what I've found that works the best, believe it or not, is this freaking wire brush. Right there, you can take this and then just poke it from the front. I don't know if you can see that or not. I can barely see that. I need bigger glasses. All right, if you see that little wire sticking out in there, that's from this guy right there. And that's how I go about cleaning those little air nozzles. So when those little guys get plugged up, it doesn't spray very good. And that really helps with your pattern. All right, so there's the lacquer gun. All right, now we're going to do the water-based gun. Oh my God. All right, so this is my DeVilbiss GTI Millennium. This is pretty much the same gun as my BINKS gun over there, except for the tip's a little different and the way the air valve and the fluid valve turn. How many turns they do actually is different. The BINKS only turns like 1 full turn in either direction to change the fan pattern. This one spins about 3 full turns. So the fluid valve right here also opens and closes about 6 full turns. The can's pretty much the same. I'm going to pull the can off right now. Here's the filter, just like in the other one. The blue washer's the exact same part. The air cap comes off, except this one has a little ring in it that keeps the air cap in the retaining ring. The big difference between this gun and the other BINKS is the way that all this works in here. So the big difference between these guns is the needle's different, the fluid tip's a different size, and the amount of air holes that we have around the fluid tip as it comes through this way. The horns are the same, they have 2 on either side, but where the fluid tip comes out, there is actually 6 different holes. And I have a flashlight I'm going to show you here right now. Okay, so if you can see right here, the horns are the same, they still have the same 2 holes, but there's 6 holes around that fluid tip, and that makes the spray pattern completely different. All right, so it's a lot different. The other one only had, I think, 2. Okay, so here's the fluid tip right here. And all fluid tips have a number on them. This one has a 1.5 on it. I'm going to take this off. So pretty much these guns are about 95% similar. The only difference being is the way they shoot air out and the tip. Okay, boom. So there's the fluid tip. And the difference between this fluid tip and the other one is the other one comes with a complete baffle in it. The whole thing came out. This one is separate than the baffle, which is right here. This is the baffle assembly right here. And it's got a little nylon washer on the back of it that's pretty much stays on there. It doesn't come off too easy. And it's got this little air hole right here. So I think air blows through this hole and blows out around this ring right here, and then blows through these outer holes here, which I think are the horns, okay? So those 3 outside holes are where it blows through the baffle, and the inside holes that you're seeing in there are what these holes blow through, okay? This is how this sits together like this. So as the air blows through this hole here, it blows around this gap here and into these outside holes that are in here. So the fluid tip here blows into this guy here, like in there, boom, and blows through these little guys right there. All right, so there's a hell of a lot of adjustment. Okay, the fluid needle is right here, and you can see up in here now? See, there are 2 air holes up here. The baffle that sits down in here fits in actually this hole over on this side, like that. So it's kind of a cool thing, all the little different venturis and little holes and pockets and all the stuff they got going on. Anyway, so the needle is right here, and we're going to take this out. And like I said, this is a long-winded needle. So the only difference between this and the other gun is that and the size of this fluid spring right here. We got the spring, we got the cap, and then just like the other gun, the easiest way to take this apart, take this needle out, is to pull it back like that and then grab a hold of the pin and pull. And you can see the difference between this needle and the other needle. The other needle is like longer, skinnier, had these little weird, look like all thread rod at the end with a bunch of nuts on it that you can adjust. This has nothing. It has just like this. And this needle, you can tell, is in pretty good shape. I've had this for a couple of years now, and it's barely worn out. So needles really don't wear out unless you're a full-time sprayer, I think. And then you might go through one a year. All right, it still has grease on it from the last time I used it, so we're just gonna put this back in. Okay, so this is the packing nut. Inside here, there's a packing seal. There's a bunch of little parts in there. Sometimes that'll wear out. It takes a while. So the way I put this back in is I'm just gonna do the exact same way I did the last one. Slide it in the hole, and we're just gonna leave it like that. We're not gonna poke it through yet, all right? We're just gonna put it in the hole and leave it. What we're gonna do first is put all this back together again, because if your needle is sticking out like this, all right, and it's sticking out, and you go to put all this in there, it might be sticking out too far, and you will actually bend your needle tip. So make sure that's not sticking out. And what we're going to do next is we're going to put the fluid tip back in. Like this. We're just going to give it a little snuggeroo. We're not going to make it tight. All right, we can put the air cap back on with a retaining ring. Boom. Just set it in there real quick. Push this all the way in. And this little washer, nylon washer, goes that way. And the hard part is getting this nut back in there without it flying off across the room, because that happens all the time. And boom, that's how that goes back together. I'm gonna turn it all the way in because I like to adjust everything. And once we have that in there, we make sure our little blue washer's in there that wears out all the time. And I'm gonna put that in there. I'm gonna spin this guy on. And I just snug it up by hand. I don't bother tightening that up because sometimes sometimes they just don't want to come off. Okay, and like I said before, I like my air regulator right here, right where I'm spraying, so I can look down and see what it is. So I can adjust it back here with there's a little valve right there, in case I want to lower this or raise this. It depends on what I'm spraying or what the conditions are. And that's basically how the gun comes apart and goes back together again. If you want to go crazy, you can take the trigger off and take all the parts out. You should do that probably once a year. Depends how much you spray, and clean everything out really well with nice hot soapy water. Yeah, so there you go. And then we'll show you how they spray. I'll show you with water how this guy sprays next. Up here, and I'll just show you with the different fan patterns and how this actually operates. And yeah, there you go. Okay, I got some water. I'm just gonna pour some water in this guy. Yeah, it's probably good. It's probably about that full, okay? Put it on there and give it a twist to the right, like you're tightening something, because that's what you're doing. You don't want to loosen this cup up. Everything is screwed all the way to the right, clockwise, all the way tight, all right? And then what we're gonna do first is we're gonna loosen, so right here we got a little air, listen, okay? But we have no fluid. So I'm gonna take this fluid nozzle right here, this valve, and I'm gonna open it up one turn. Here's the air. fluid. And it's really narrow. So to get this wider, we're going to open this valve up. There's another half a turn. Here we go. See how wide it is now? So depending on the viscosity of your material, right, whether you're spraying paint, whether you're spraying stain, catalyzed lacquer, or water-based polyurethane, you're going to have to adjust all of these knobs. Okay, so I'm going to open the fluid up even more. Another turn. And now you can really see it, right? It's coming out a lot more. All right, I don't think it's going to do any more than that because I feel like the trigger is all the way open, but there we go. So a little bit more, right? So what happens if we shut the air valve off? What are we going to get? You're going to get something really skinny, right? And I've seen people actually spray from 3 feet away, which is silly. So I'm going to open this up 1/2 a turn. I'm going to open it up another 1/2 a turn, which is 1 full turn. And it won't get much wider than that. Here's 2 turns. I'm going to turn this all the way off now. Turning the fluid all the way off. Nothing. 1/2 a turn. So when you spray it like this, see how thin that is? And then the more fluid you add, the thicker it's going to go on. All right, so that's one of those things you're going to have to work on always. It's like, okay, I got even a new batch, even if it's hot or cold. So it's a warm day out, your fluid's going to run better when it's warmer than when it's colder. And that's why when I do water-based polyurethane, I try to add like 5% of warm water, or hot water actually, to it to get it as warm as possible. I also heat up my gun. I leave my gun in hot water before I spray. I also fill this with hot water and spray hot water through it to warm up my gun. It actually helps it spray better. Okay, so when you're trying to figure out your pattern, if you can look into the light right at your same level or above, you can see your fan and how you want to have it set. So that's too narrow, it's getting better, it's getting better. That's probably how you want it. And the same with the fluid. You know, I've got this out a couple cranks, but you need to keep looking at it and adjust it and figure out what you need for what's comfortable for when you're spraying. So when you're spraying any kind of material, you should be at least 6 to 10 inches away. Yeah, it all depends. I've seen people spray from 1.5 feet away, think they're doing a great job, and they wonder why their stuff is full of overspray. But for me, it's usually 6 to 8 inches, 6 to 10 inches. It all depends. All right, well, there you go. How to take your gun apart, all the parts and what they were, how to put it back together again, a little bit of how to adjust your air and your water, air and your water, your air and your fluid. That's a little bit of a dance you have to do, and practice. So always find yourself a hunk of wood, practice on a hunk of wood. If you want to slow down your spraying and go slower, less fluid, okay? If you want to go faster, more fluid. And just a little bit more air. That's what you got to do. In the next video, I'm going to show you how all that works. I'm going to be spraying these walls, and I'll show you how I go about doing all that. Coming soon to a theater near you. All right, well, thanks for watching my silliness on the YouTubes. If you have any questions, comment below, and I'll see you next time. You have an awesome day. Go outside and play. Hug somebody you love. Be safe out there, and I'll see you next time right here on Woodworking with Mr. Kevin. That's me. And yeah, I'm going to flash you out of here. Ready? Here we go.
Subscribe now.
I'm burping. And how are you, Mr. Burpee? This thing's loose. Oh, now it's not loose. All right. Okay. Start over. Okay, and here we go. All right. Oh, did it die? Oh, my magic button died. Oh, crap. Where's my other magic button? Magic button. Oh, there it is. Sugar, I killed it. All right, here we go. No? Oh, it's a conspiracy going on here. All righty then. And we're going to squirt you out of here. Ready? Here we go. Oh, it just dribbled. It's like an old man peeing in a toilet. Bye.